Daily life for ADX Florence inmates today. In the heart of the Colorado desert lies one of the most secure and notorious prisons in the world, ADX Florence, also known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This is a place where some of the most dangerous criminals in American history are locked away, isolated from the rest of the world. Famous inmates, ruthless criminals, and those who've shaken society to its core, all incarcerated in one of the most extreme environments imaginable. But what is daily life like for these inmates today? What happens behind these steel doors, where even the smallest movements are monitored? What is it like for a human being to live in this world of silence, control, and isolation? Before we dive into today's powerful story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping tales. Your support helps us keep sharing these stories, and we wouldn't want you to miss any of the action. Now, let's get started. Introduction. ADX Florence isn't just a maximum security prison. It is a place of solitary confinement, where inmates are kept in their cells for up to 23 hours a day. With over 400 inmates, including notorious figures like Ted Kaczynski and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the facility is designed to isolate, control, and break the will of its inhabitants. But what does solitary confinement really mean? What happens to a person's mind, their body, and their spirit when they are subjected to a life of near-total isolation? The daily routine. Every day at ADX Florence is strictly regimented. There's no room for error, no space for chaos. The routine is unyielding, precise. For inmates, this structure is both their existence and their torment. Morning roll call and cell checks. Each day begins early. At 6 a.m. sharp, guards conduct the morning roll call. Every inmate must be accounted for. A routine that might seem ordinary to most, but for those inside ADX Florence, it is the first step in another day of monotony and surveillance. Meals. Meals come through the small, secure slots in the doors of each cell. These meals are basic, nutritional, but unremarkable. There's no cafeteria or communal dining in ADX Florence, just a solitary tray pushed through the slot and left for the inmate. For most, these meals represent one of the few moments of human interaction. Brief, distant, and indirect. The rest of the day, inmates are left to fend for themselves in their tiny cells. Exercise. Exercise is the only time when inmates are allowed to leave their cells, but even then it's not much of a relief. For 1 hour a day, inmates are taken to an isolated exercise yard. They can walk in circles, pace, or engage in limited physical activity, but this is not freedom. It's more isolation. Isolation and mental health. Being confined to a cell for 23 hours a day, year after year, has a profound effect on the mind. The psychological toll of this isolation is immense. Inmates often struggle with depression, anxiety, and paranoia. There's little to break the monotony. No conversations, no human touch, just the silence and the walls. Studies have shown that long-term solitary confinement can cause irreversible psychological damage, leading to what experts call prison psychosis, a state where individuals experience extreme mental deterioration. Visitor restrictions and communication. Family visits are rare, and when they do happen, they are highly regulated. Inmates can communicate with their loved ones, but only through glass partitions. No physical contact, no warmth of a handshake or hug, just a distant conversation, separated by a barrier. Unconfirmed reports and speculations. What happens behind the doors of ADX Florence, and how life is truly lived within its walls, is largely a mystery. The prison is shrouded in secrecy, and most details about daily life are guarded tightly, but what we do know is chilling enough. But what about the infamous inmates of ADX Florence? How do the likes of Ted Kaczynski, El Chapo, and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev spend their days inside the prison? What are their routines, and how do they survive the psychological torment of solitary confinement? The infamous inmates of ADX Florence. Inmates at ADX Florence are not your average criminals. They are the worst of the worst, dangerous, infamous, and in some cases, masterminds behind violent crimes that shocked the world. These men are not just part of the general population. They are the faces of terror, the individuals whose crimes made headlines around the globe. But what is it like for them behind these walls? How do they endure the isolation, the harsh conditions, and the complete disconnection from the outside world? Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski, the notorious Unabomber, is one of the most infamous inmates at ADX Florence. Convicted of a deadly nationwide bombing campaign, Kaczynski's mind is just as dangerous as his actions. In his solitary cell, Kaczynski spends most of his time writing, reading, and thinking. His intellectual brilliance was once the driving force behind his violent acts, and even today, in confinement, his mind remains sharp. His writings, including his infamous manifesto Industrial Society and Its Future, are still discussed widely. But while the world knows his ideas, ADX Florence isolates him from any meaningful dialogue. He is confined to his cell, where his only communication with others is through brief, controlled interactions with prison staff. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, the drug kingpin. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, the Mexican drug lord and leader of the Sinaloa cartel, was captured and sent to ADX Florence after his dramatic escape from a maximum security prison in Mexico. At ADX Florence, Guzmán's cell is equipped with a range of high-security features. He is not just confined to isolation, he is under 24/7 surveillance. Cameras track his every movement, and even the slightest attempt at communication with the outside world is quickly detected. Though El Chapo is a man who once commanded an empire built on drug trafficking at ADX Florence, he is nothing more than another inmate under constant watch. His days are filled with monotonous routines, punctuated by brief moments in his private exercise yard. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the Boston Marathon bomber. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the surviving member of the Boston Marathon bombing duo, was sentenced to death for his role in the 2013 terrorist attack that killed 3 people and injured hundreds more. Unlike Guzmán, Tsarnaev has not escaped his confinement. His life is spent in complete isolation, and his access to other inmates is non-existent. His only connection to the outside world is through legal channels and brief, monitored visits with his attorneys. Tsarnaev's case continues to make waves in the media, as appeals for his death sentence are still ongoing. But inside the walls of ADX Florence, he lives a life devoid of any recognition, known only by his number. His movements are tracked, and his isolation is absolute. Living with infamy. But what does living with such infamy do to a person? How does one survive the weight of their own crimes when the entire world is watching and waiting for their fall? For inmates like Kaczynski, Guzmán, and Tsarnaev, survival means navigating the unrelenting isolation. The human mind is fragile, and even the most hardened criminals are not immune to the psychological toll of solitary confinement. As the days stretch on, time becomes a blur. Minutes feel like hours, hours become days, and days bleed into weeks, months, and years. Inmates like these may have once been feared by many, but inside ADX Florence, they are simply prisoners, waiting for the next roll call, the next meal, the next moment of interaction. The strain of solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is often referred to as a form of psychological torture. The isolation, the silence, the lack of human contact, it erodes a person's sense of self. Even the most notorious criminals, locked away in the most secure prison in the world, are not immune to its effects. Some inmates, like Kaczynski, use their time to reflect and write. Others, like Tsarnaev and Guzmán, likely struggle with the weight of their own decisions, knowing they are forever imprisoned by the crimes they've committed. Speculation and the future. What does the future hold for these inmates? Will they ever see the outside world again, or are they destined to rot in isolation until the end of their days? Some reports suggest that inmates like El Chapo and Tsarnaev may never leave the confines of ADX Florence. Others speculate that, due to the ongoing nature of their legal battles, they may one day face a different fate. But what about the prison itself? What happens inside the control rooms, the nerve center of ADX Florence? How are guards trained to handle these dangerous inmates? And what measures are taken to ensure that not even a single mistake is made? The inner workings of ADX Florence and the role of guards. Behind the walls of ADX Florence, it's not just the inmates who face isolation. The guards, too, live in a world of constant vigilance. Inside the control rooms, where every movement is monitored, every moment is a high-stakes game of precision and control. Operating a prison like ADX Florence requires a unique set of skills. These aren't just typical corrections officers. They are highly trained professionals tasked with maintaining order within a facility that holds the most dangerous individuals in the world. Guard training and daily responsibilities. Before becoming part of the elite staff at ADX Florence, guards undergo extensive training. It's not just about physical strength or knowing how to handle weapons. It's about mental fortitude, the ability to remain calm in the most intense situations, and the capacity to anticipate the actions of the most dangerous criminals. Interview with guard. Every day is different. You're always alert, always aware. The inmates in this place will try anything to break the system. They test you, push you to see if you'll crack. It's up to us to stay one step ahead. The surveillance systems. One of the most important tools in the arsenal of ADX Florence's security is its state-of-the-art surveillance system. With hundreds of cameras monitoring every square inch of the prison, there is nowhere for inmates to hide. The slightest movement is detected, recorded, and analyzed in real time. Every day, guards and staff are monitoring inmates' behavior constantly. If an inmate makes a move that seems out of the ordinary, security staff is alerted immediately. From the moment an inmate wakes up to the moment they sleep, their actions are scrutinized. The control room, the nerve center of ADX Florence. At the heart of ADX Florence's operation is the control room. Here, a team of officers monitors the cameras, listens for sounds through advanced audio equipment, and ensures that no one is out of place. The control room is like the brain of the prison, alert, precise, and always on high alert. Guards in the control room communicate directly with staff members stationed throughout the prison. They relay orders, manage emergency situations, and ensure the flow of daily operations is uninterrupted. It's a highly coordinated effort. Every action, every decision requires flawless execution. Psychological strain on the guards. While the inmates at ADX Florence face the mental toll of isolation, the guards are not without their own challenges. The constant pressure to remain vigilant, the weight of being responsible for the lives of some of the most dangerous criminals on the planet. It takes a psychological toll on them too. Interview with a former ADX Florence guard. The hardest part is the silence. It's not just the inmates who are isolated. The guards are too. You're cut off from the world. You can't afford to let your guard down for even a second. The mental stress, the constant pressure, it wears you down over time. Life in the perimeter and beyond. Outside of the control rooms, the prison's perimeter is an imposing fortress of steel and concrete. The walls are reinforced with razor wire, designed to prevent any escape attempts from even the most determined individuals. Guards on the outside of ADX Florence patrol the facility relentlessly, their eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. They are responsible for ensuring that no one can escape, because for the inmates housed here, escape isn't just difficult, it's virtually impossible. The death watch and execution procedures. Though ADX Florence is designed to hold its inmates in isolation, the facility also serves another, even darker purpose. It's home to the federal government's Death Watch unit. Here, some of the most notorious criminals on death row await their fate. The Death Watch unit is where prisoners sentenced to death are held in the days leading up to their execution. These inmates are subject to additional monitoring, and they live with the constant knowledge that their time is running out. Tensions between guards and inmates. Tensions between the guards and inmates at ADX Florence are an ever-present reality. The prison's philosophy is one of total control, and the inmates know it. Every action, every glance is closely monitored. Inmates often try to manipulate the system, testing the limits of what they can get away with. But the guards at ADX Florence have seen it all. They are trained to resist manipulation and to maintain control at all costs. The role of technology in ADX Florence. Technology plays an essential role in maintaining the security of ADX Florence. From facial recognition systems that identify every visitor, to biometric scanners that track the movement of guards, technology ensures that nothing is left to chance. Every piece of technology is meticulously monitored, ensuring that there are no vulnerabilities. It's a constant, high-tech battle to maintain control, and to prevent any chance of an escape or breach. The psychological impact on the guards. Just as the inmates suffer psychological strain, so too do the guards. The mental pressure of maintaining constant surveillance, dealing with the most dangerous criminals in the country, and the burden of being the last line of defense takes its toll on those who serve in ADX Florence. Teaser for next part. But what happens when the inmates finally leave ADX Florence? What are the long-term consequences of a life spent in solitary confinement? And what happens when a person is released after spending decades in isolation? The aftermath of solitary confinement. What happens when inmates are released? After years, sometimes decades, spent in the harshest form of confinement, what happens when an inmate is released from a place like ADX Florence? What becomes of the mind, the body, and the spirit when someone is forced to re-enter the world after living in isolation for so long? Solitary confinement, especially in a facility like ADX Florence, has profound psychological effects. The human brain is not designed for isolation. It thrives on social interaction, connection, and stimulation. But what happens when that is stripped away for years on end? The effects of long-term solitary confinement. Interview with psychologist. Long-term solitary confinement can lead to a wide range of psychological issues. Inmates often experience depression, anxiety, hallucinations, and even suicidal tendencies. The brain begins to atrophy when deprived of social and environmental stimuli. Studies have shown that prolonged solitary confinement can alter the brain's structure. Areas responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and memory can shrink or become less functional. Some inmates experience irreversible damage, making it nearly impossible for them to reintegrate into society after their release. The reentry process. For those lucky enough to eventually be released from ADX Florence, the transition back to society is anything but easy. After years in isolation, where even the smallest human interaction is scarce, re-entering the world is an overwhelming challenge. After living in a cell with little to no contact with the outside world, re-entry feels like being thrust into a foreign land. Simple tasks, like using a phone, interacting with others, or navigating a grocery store, can become insurmountable challenges for former inmates. Case study: the impact on former ADX Florence inmates. Interview with a former inmate. It's like waking up in a world that doesn't make sense anymore. Everything is overwhelming. People, noises, choices, everything is a lot to handle. It's like I was trapped in my mind for years, and when I got out, I had to learn how to live again. Former ADX Florence inmates often find themselves trapped in a psychological and emotional prison long after their physical release. Without the proper rehabilitation and support, they struggle to reintegrate into society. The challenges of adjusting to the outside world are compounded by the fact that many are leaving the prison system without the skills necessary to navigate a normal life. The struggle with mental health. Some former inmates attempt to seek help through therapy and mental health services, but not all have access to adequate care. Many are left to fend for themselves, carrying the weight of years in solitary confinement without the tools to heal. Interview with psychologist. The effects of solitary confinement are deep. It's not just about feeling isolated, it's about the profound psychological scars left behind. When a person is denied social interaction for so long, it rewires their brain in a way that makes normal human relationships difficult to form. Recovery is possible, but it requires intensive therapy, time, and support. The risk of recidivism. While some former inmates make efforts to rebuild their lives, the reality is that many end up back in the criminal justice system. The lack of support, the mental toll of isolation, and the difficulties of reintegration can push them toward criminal behavior once again. Recidivism rates are high among former ADX Florence inmates. The stress of reentry combined with the psychological damage inflicted by years of solitary confinement makes it difficult to stay on the right path. Many find themselves caught in a cycle of reoffending, unable to break free from the mental chains of their past. The public debate. The debate over solitary confinement is ongoing. Critics argue that it is a form of cruel and unusual punishment, leading to long-term psychological damage. Advocates for prison reform point to the need for better rehabilitation programs, emphasizing that punishment should focus on rehabilitation, not on breaking the human spirit. Interview with activist. Solitary confinement isn't just punishment, it's psychological destruction. We cannot continue to treat people like this and expect them to re-enter society and be productive. The system needs to change. We need more rehabilitation and less isolation. The changing landscape of solitary confinement. Across the country, there is growing momentum to reform solitary confinement practices. States are beginning to limit the use of solitary confinement for juveniles, the mentally ill, and those serving long sentences. While change is slow, it represents a growing recognition of the devastating effects isolation can have on the human psyche. The final impact of ADX Florence. ADX Florence is a place of last resort, a facility for those whose crimes have left an indelible mark on society. But the consequences of life inside don't end when the gates open. For many, the real challenge begins when they are released, forced to face the broken parts of themselves that prison has left behind. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more in-depth documentaries. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the effects of solitary confinement? We'd love to hear your opinions. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed.